Yes, started.
Okay, fine. Okay, so yeah, so this is the community edition of Databricks. Okay, so here the only difference what I have seen between a community edition and the Azure based Databricks is this as a compute thing. Under compute we can create separate compute servers and all. Okay, so you can actually choose your servers here in compute.
Okay.
So you can see here, you can choose these options. But in the community edition, what you can see is you have a serverless. Basically, you can't choose a server cluster. Here you can choose your cluster. Cluster size, you can choose this, all these. You can even use a single node cluster. Yeah, you can set this memory and etc. etc. Obviously, like you can work on serverless also, but see the problem. See, there are cases. What I understood is like when you run uh, some kind of jobs, sometimes it doesn't accept you to work on serverless. I think some features I know that it doesn't allow you to use serverless.
Okay.
But
Okay.
otherwise, but on community edition, we can use whatever way you want. Like you can create jobs. Here you can create tables. You can. So right now, what I've done is I have a retail volume where I have uploaded these files. Okay. So for playing around, we have uploaded the files and all. So I have put these files here under sales, and I have created those tables and whatever. So workspace and all. So what I have done is I have created a production level kind of workspace under the workspace. So I have created these folders and all. So it is pretty much what we discussed, no, about the Medellin architecture. We will so all the ingestion jobs, everything I've created here on a community edition. Okay, when it comes to Azure Databricks, uh, only difference what I have seen is the compute part. Rest of the things are all pretty much the same. You can schedule jobs, cataloging, tables, and all. It's all same. Workspace is also same. But the only there is one difference. So if you have to access something from Azure ADLS, you can access only through the Azure Databricks. From the community edition, you can't access it. All right. So that reason, I have put all those files here, so we will be able to play around with that files. Okay. So this is my own account. So I think you have created your own account. So maybe uh, I'll do it on mine, or like later we will let you create yourself on your Databricks, like community edition. Okay. And this one, if it works, we will use it. If it doesn't charge and all, what we'll do is run it for, we'll use it for half an hour, and we'll check your billing. I don't think it will get charged. Usually, it should get charged from this credit if it's getting credit charged from the other one, because I tried my own Azure version, and it was getting charged on my. I mean, I was not using my free credit. I was using my it got expired long time back. So ഞാൻ ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ എൻ്റെ കറണ്ട് അക്കൗണ്ട് വെച്ച് യൂസ് ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ I think it got charged like $2 something. That's it. And maybe every time when I run, it was charging me for like 1 hour. If you once the cluster is up, right? They kind of the cluster will have a charge, DBU charge. Okay, so that DBU charge will come around. They will have this billing info also, where it says how much gets charged and all. Okay, so see this. So it all depends on what kind of. Uh, so let's say we go for a single node. Okay, I'm not choosing Proton. So 1 dbu per hour is the price. Okay, so it roughly comes around $1 something per hour. So let's say I bring it down to 13. I'll bring it down to slightly lower thing. See, 75 dBu per hour. So this DBU is that Databricks unit per hour. So that's the cost. So see, when you are working with DBU or like you should be little aware of these units, because when you're using in the organization, you can't just let this Databricks run overnight and all. No? But so this will actually auto terminate. So if you don't use it, it will auto terminate. But let's assume that you have a job which is not very necessary and you just let it run, and there are some kind of pipeline, it is just running for over 24 hours, right? Then it can lead to a lot of cost, right? So നമുക്ക് അങ്ങനത്തെ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ കുറച്ച് ശ്രദ്ധിക്കണം. See, based on your existing cloud, your default has been reduced and your increase. Okay, it doesn't say anything about increase your quota in portal. Okay, yeah, I think you can still use this. Let's use this for now. So what we'll do is, even if you don't bring up a compute, it will automatically use serverless. Uh,
Okay, okay.
let's create a Yeah, so what I've done is I have created a notebook. So under the workspace, I've created a folder called production pipeline. Okay, so under production pipeline, I create a lot of folders, but you don't focus much on that side. So we'll see how to create a notebook and all in first place. Okay, we'll go back here. So here workspace, under workspace, let me create a folder. So under this, you can create anything, right? File, notebook. So this file, you can actually use it like a Python file or Scala file, whatever file you want. So you can write a code on that file. That way also can be done. So let's start with a notebook. So you create a notebook. Then from here, you can start doing your basic commands or whatever. So and one more thing I wanted to say, okay, on the compute side, so when you do serverless, right, it's auto scaling. Okay, so it has a auto scaling feature. So let's say you run a job which needs a lot of memory and a lot of compute, it automatically scale up. So but whereas when you do a compute with a normal, let's say this is like a 16 gigs and 4 core. So if you are putting a lot of data and started processing it, it will still use the 16 gigs and 4 core. It will not auto scale, right? So it will be using only that cluster what you have chosen. So whereas if you are putting on a serverless, it will, if it requires more memory and more core, it will kind of auto scale to maybe 32 gigs or 8 core, whatever the next level. It usually go up like this, 32 gigs and 8 core. So it has a standard way of going up. So it will use one of these thing when you do scaling up. Okay. So going back to this, we kind of discussed on these areas, right? Then SQL editor, all these things we have discussed in our previous session. So let's go back and just start with one notebook, how we create a notebook. So we click on this notebook. You can rename it. So there is, if let's say you want to write a query or something, select star from a particular table or whatever, then automatically this percentage SQL comes. So that's when the actual it runs like an SQL. See, you can see it's going on serverless. So I'll go back here. I have some tables. So okay, so this is actually a delta table which I have created. So you can do a query just like a normal SQL query. So even though this is actually a file at the backend, it's a Parquet file or like Delta file. So they create it as Delta. So in Databricks, there is something called Delta tables. It gives the asset features. Okay, Delta. So usually what happen is, RDBMS, right? You must be
Mm.
using database. So Delta tables are it kind of allow you to do all these asset transactions. Like you can do select query and you can create tables, but at the back end it will be files. But you will be able to do all most of these queries. But the only thing is, people when you do a update or whatever at the back end, it kind of do an upsert. Uh, it's not a wise decision to do a update and all, because update on DB and these kind of files is little different, because update can be little costly. Uh, so it mostly we mostly use upsert. Upsert is a command to when you do a merge and all. Usually we use merge. So when you use merge, it will kind of uh, do an upsert at the backend. So it will take the data, make some changes, and do an insert. So at the backend, it's kind of do a soft delete or something like that. Okay. So uh, this is okay. I think
ആ,
this was giving.
ഒരു ഡൗട്ട് ആക്ച്വലി ഈ ഈ ഡാറ്റ ഉള്ളത് അഷ്വറിലായിരുന്നോ അതോ ഡി ബിയുടെ സ്റ്റോറേജിലാണോ? അഷ്വറിന്റെ അല്ലേ?
ഓക്കെ, സി ഇപ്പം ഇത് ഞാൻ ഈ കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റി എഡിഷൻ ആണ് ഇപ്പോൾ ഓപ്പൺ ചെയ്ത് വെച്ചിരുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ,
ഉം.
ഈ കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റി എഡിഷനിൽ ഇപ്പം നമ്മളെ സ്റ്റോറേജ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് കാണിച്ചു തരാം. ഇത് ആക്ച്വലി ബാക്ക് എൻഡിൽ ഫയൽസ് ആണ്. ഓക്കെ, ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ ലൊക്കേഷനിൽ പോയിട്ട് കാണിച്ചു തരാം. So if you go down here in the catalog, so I put it this thing. Okay, it's under audit. If you see this audit file, pipeline underscore audit. So these are the files. Okay, so this is actually, if you see the file, it's a compressed Parquet file. Okay, so at the back end, these are Parquet files, but we use a Delta table on top of this Parquet file. So when I do a query, uh, when I run this query, it is actually fetching data from this table, these files. Okay, so uh, so you were asking, your question was what, like DB or file. So this in this case, yes, it is actually reading the file from this particular path.
ഓക്കെ
But if you are using this data bricks, what you can do is you can actually connect to an ADLS.
ഓക്കെ
Okay,
ഓക്കെ.
ADLS is, you know what is ADLS, right? I think we discussed about ADLS yesterday.
യെസ് യെസ്.
So from the storage account, you will be able to access this file. For that, you will have to create a key. Mm, there is a security
ഓക്കെ.
access key.
ഒരു ഒരു
So you
കീ
will have,
ഒരു കീയും സീക്രട്ട് കോഡൊക്കെ വെച്ചിട്ട് ആക്സസ് ചെയ്യാമായിരിക്കും.
yeah. So you have to
ഓക്കെ
copy this
ഓക്കെ
key,
ഓക്കെ.
put it here. From here, you have to connect it. Okay, so let me check. Connect. So we will have to use this access key. So see, in the real production scenario, you will not be able to, you will not put this key on the notebook. We will have to, put it somewhere where people
Mm,
have no
mm,
access and all.
mm,
Just
mm,
that our job will run and pick it from
mm.
somewhere. So that's how it has to be run. Okay, we will not be using like this. Okay, so storage account. What is our storage account? Doesn't tell you. Okay, storage account. Thing is well, I'll have to figure out why it is failing. Maybe. Okay, so right now I'll figure it out and then we will look into that. For now, we'll go back to the actual point. So yeah, the only difference is you will be able to access the data from ADLS. Here we are accessing from our Databricks. This is actually an Databricks storage. Okay. So the problem with Databricks storage is it is actually expensive. So people don't use in most of the companies, they prefer using ADLS, Azure Databricks. And we will create this pipeline or whatever in ADA data factory, which we discussed yesterday, right? So we will do everything in IDF, but in the Databricks, Databricks is kind of called here. So here, just and there are two ways of dealing with these pipelines and all. You can actually create pipelines in your own Databricks and do it, but just that it is not very efficient in terms of the cost. So companies will be using Azure plus Databricks, which we discussed yesterday, right? So otherwise, you can always create pipelines here. You can see pipelines. So these pipelines can be run and stuff. And again, once you will be able to query those data and all. Okay, then going back to our work notebook and stuff. So let's say I'll take one of the workspace what I've created. We will go with a ingestion job. So this is an ingestion job. It's a notebook. So uh, so here okay, here the thing is okay. I don't want to confuse you because this is a lot of code because you don't need to start with this when you start learning on this. So when you start with uh, any kind of notebook, you can just start with a normal scenario where you read a file first, load it to a data frame, something like that. Okay. So it has a lot of features. So you can actually tell this create a data frame uh, before that read the data file from what is the path. We know this is the path. We have something called retail row path, sales. Okay, see what is it generating. So you can make use of these things. Uh, So it reads Spark read format Parquet. So actually saying it is not a Parquet file. So it might fail. Yeah, it's not a Parquet file. It's actually a CSV file. So here, I think CSV file it should be able to read. There are files which is so in this volume raw file. I got sales transaction. Okay, I have transaction also. So in my transaction, so let's give the full file path. So you okay transactions. So we're just reading to a data frame. Yeah, now it is reading, and it's just displaying that data frame. Okay, so
Okay.
since you have not worked on Spark, right? You have been
Spark,
working mostly on Python.
അതെ,
അല്ലേ?
പൈത്തൺ ഓർ SQL ഓൾട്രിക്സ്.
Spark യൂസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ലല്ലോ?
ഇല്ല, ഞാൻ ബട്ട് ജസ്റ്റ് നോക്കിയിരുന്നു പണ്ടൊരിക്കൽ ബേസിക്സ് ഒക്കെ.
ഓക്കെ. സി സ്പാർക്കിൽ മെയിൻ ആയിട്ട് ആക്ച്വലി ഐ ക്യാൻ സ്പാർക്കിന്റെ കമാൻഡ് there are a lot of Spark commands what you use. So basically you will have to invoke a Spark session. These things we will actually do it, but in nowadays we don't have to use all those things now because here we have a lot of almost everything is available handy. So when you usually what happens is you have to import a Spark session from Spark SQL, and then you can create this Spark session and use it. So this Spark session is actually used here. So here you can use a Spark session, create, then read CSV. So this is actually a syntax, right? You don't have to by heart it, but just that you can always Google it or whatever, and nobody is going to ask you by heart, right? So that is it. So Spark, obviously you will read this file CSV, and there is something called infer schema. Uh, so infer schema is nothing but infer schema helps you to read the data, understand those columns, everything based on the data. So let's try that, see the difference. So if you see here, currently what we have loaded, you can see the column names are down on the row number 1. Okay, but if you do an infer schema, you will see a difference in that. You can see the columns are automatically picked and the data types are also picked. So it understands the data and it kind of creates that.
ഓക്കെ 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 ഡയറക്ടർ ടൈപ്പ് മാറി, ശരിയാ.
അല്ല.
അതെ അതെ അതെ, നേരത്തെ എല്ലാം സ്ട്രിങ് ആയിരുന്നു.
So this infer schema is very important, okay, when you're using the data. And there is something called struct type. Actually saying when you work on real time scenario, right? It is advisable to use struct type. So you define those fields because the reason is, what if someone sends you a new file? Okay. അപ്പൊ നമ്മളിപ്പോ ഒരു ഡെയിലി ഒരു ഫയൽ ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് വെച്ചേക്കുക, പ്രൊഡക്ഷൻ പൈപ്പ് ലൈൻ റൺ ചെയ്യാം. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പൊ നാളെ വേറൊരാൾ പുതിയൊരു ഫയൽ അയച്ചു. That file is completely different, and if this one is trying to infer the schema with the data what they have sent, then your production pipeline will fail. So we can use something called struct type.
ഓക്കെ.
Okay.
എന്താ ചെയ്യുന്നത്?
പറഞ്ഞ struct type is basically you are defining each of these fields. So നമ്മൾ അഡ്വാൻസ് ആയിട്ട് struct type ഡിഫൈൻ ചെയ്യും. ഓക്കെ,
ഓക്കെ
ഇപ്പൊ
ഓക്കെ
നമ്മൾ ഈ ഫീൽഡ്സിനെ അങ്ങോട്ട് ഡിഫൈൻ ചെയ്യും ഓട്ടോമാറ്റിക്കലി. അപ്പം സ്കീമ ഡിഫൈൻ ചെയ്യും, എന്നിട്ട് ആ സ്കീമ മാത്രമേ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുള്ളൂ.
ഓക്കെ 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 ഓക്കെ
Predefined, basically it's a predefined schema. So
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ.
then you will not be inferring. മനസ്സിലായില്ലേ?
യെസ് യെസ് യെസ്.
അപ്പൊ അങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യുമ്പോ ഒരു പ്രശ്നം വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ you should define every bit of it, no? You are basically defining the column, data types, and you should make sure that the data also comes. If let's say the data is coming with with a header, then you will have to skip the header. And
ഓക്കെ
also every column should be in exactly the same way it is supposed to come. If it comes in a different format, then your file will not load or it fails. പറഞ്ഞു മനസ്സിലായോ?
യെസ് യെസ് യെസ്.
ഓക്കെ,
രാഹുൽ,
then
എനിക്ക് ഒരു ഡൗട്ട്.
ആ
സപ്പോസ് നമ്മളൊരു ഒരു ആക്ടിവിറ്റി ഉണ്ട്. ഡെയിലി ഒരു 2 TB ഡാറ്റ പ്രോസസ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് അതിൻ്റെ ഔട്ട് എടുക്കുന്നു, അസ്യൂം ചെയ്യൂ.
ആ
അപ്പോൾ
ഉം.
സപ്പോസ് നാളെ ഇപ്പം എനിക്ക് പറഞ്ഞ ഡാറ്റയുടെ സ്കീം ചെറിയൊരു ഒരു ഡിഫറൻസ് ഉണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ
ആ
ഞാനത്
അപ്പൊ അത് ഫെയിൽ ആവും.
അല്ല, അപ്പോൾ അത് ആക്ച്വലി ഈ സ്കീമ ഡാറ്റ സ്പാർക്കിലോട്ട് ലോഡ് ചെയ്യുന്ന മുന്നേ സെപ്പറേറ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ചെക്ക് ചെയ്യാറുണ്ടോ, അതോ നമ്മൾ ഈ സ്പാർക്ക് സെഷൻ ക്രിയേറ്റ് ആയിട്ട്
അത്
അതിന് ഫെയിലൊക്കെ വിടുമോ?
see, so it's see there is always a it should be it's always a better approach to check if the data coming in or the schema is intact. Okay,
ഓക്കെ.
if the schema is not intact, then don't let the Spark job run, because when you run a Spark job, it takes a lot of energy,
യെസ്
right?
യെസ്
Basically,
യെസ് യെസ് യെസ്.
it's consuming a lot of Spark job, or you don't have to run that. So the first thing is validate the file. If the file is good to go, then you load the file. That's the basic criteria. So before you start doing a loading, you check the file, check the fields, data types. Let's say there can be fields which cannot be null, primary keys, whatever. Those kind of validation you can check in
ഓക്കെ
advance of loading, because if you're dealing with 2 TB of data, uh, halfway it can fail, right? Then it's again a double work, right? So our pipeline should be resilient enough to manage that part.
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ.
മനസ്സിലായില്ലേ?
യെസ്.
ഉം.
അപ്പോൾ ഈ സ്കീമ ചെക്കൊക്കെ
നമുക്ക്
നമ്മൾ അതൊരു ഒരു ഒരു സെപ്പറേറ്റ് പൈസ്പാർക്ക് ആയിട്ട് എഴുതോ അതോ പൈത്തണിൽ എഴുതോ?
അത് പൈത്തൺ PySpark തന്നെ എഴുതാം.
ഓക്കെ, ഇതിൽ തന്നെ എഴുതിയാൽ മതിയല്ലോ.
it's not you can write in Python or PySpark, both ways it's fine, right? Because you are writing code here.
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ
Okay, here you can write code in Python, Spark, Scala, anything. So the first, maybe what we can do is in the first layer, first notebook, first cell itself, you do a data validation. Okay, data file validation, you can do it here. Okay.
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ.
And you can even mention that if this is as fine, then you run the next
ആ
cell.
ആ ആ.
Or what we do is in the jobs, you will create multiple
ഓക്കെ
in this
ഓക്കെ
pipeline, right?
ഓക്കെ. മൾട്ടിപ്പിൾ
There is
ജോബ്സ്
an
ആക്കി
option you
എഴുതിയിട്ട്
can
ഓക്കെ പൈപ്പിനായിട്ട് കൊടുക്കാം.
jobs നമുക്ക് you can orchestrate based on your requirement.
ഓക്കെ
Okay, അത് നമുക്ക് നാളെ അതിന്റെ ഒരു മേ ബി ഒരു ചെറിയ ജോബ്, ഒരു ചെറിയ സിനാരിയോ നമുക്ക് ചെയ്യാം നാളെ.
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ
ഓക്കെ, ഞാൻ ഈ കീ ഒന്ന് വർക്ക് ചെയ്യാമെങ്കിൽ ബേസിക്കലി വി ക്യാൻ ട്രൈ ടു യൂസ് Databricks with ADF. If that works, then it's well and good. We can do that. അപ്പൊ നമുക്ക് ആ pipeline, see, actually saying this file validation and all those things, you can do it from ADF. ADF കുറച്ചും കൂടെ ഈസിയർ ആയിട്ട് ചെയ്യാം. നമ്മൾ ഈ നോട്ട്ബുക്കിൽ നിന്ന് ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് പകരം ADF-ൽ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. Notebook is also fine because Python can kind of deal with a lot of stuff much easier. So, but ADF as an orchestration tool, if you are using ADF itself have a lot of features. No, നമ്മൾ കഴിഞ്ഞ ദിവസം ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്തില്ലേ മറ്റേ
Yes, yes.
കോപ്പി ചെയ്യുന്ന, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ there are a lot of other features where it can check if the file is that this all these validation checks you can do it using ADF, and obviously you can do it from here also, but only thing is here you have to run the notebook. Okay, നമുക്ക് നാളെ I'll try to build something, then നമുക്ക് അതൊന്ന് ചെയ്ത് നോക്കാം നാളെ
Okay.
ചെറിയ രീതിയിൽ. ഓക്കെ,
Okay.
ആക്ച്വലി സെയിങ് ഇൻ ADF-ൽ ഈ ലുക്കപ്പ് കണ്ടില്ലേ, this lookup is actually dealing with something like that. It checks if the file exists.
അതെ അതെ അത് ഞാൻ കണ്ടിരുന്നു. ശരിയാ. എല്ലാം
അപ്പൊ
എല്ലാം വന്നിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ മാത്രമേ നെക്സ്റ്റിലോട്ട് പോകുന്നുള്ളൂ.
അതെ, അപ്പൊ ഈ ADF is actually doing that part, but the same thing you can do it from the notebook. നമുക്കിത് വേണമെങ്കിൽ നോട്ട്ബുക്ക് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ട്രൈ ചെയ്യാം. Similar scenario we can try it using ADF also. So both ways you learn how to do it. Okay, നാളെ നമുക്ക് അത് നോക്കാം.
ഓക്കെ
ഓക്കെ, നീ ഫ്രീ ടൈം കിട്ടുമ്പോൾ maybe you can try to play around with this
ഓക്കെ
Databricks
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ
and this one community edition. You start practicing it. Okay, for now what I'm going to do is I'll kill the cluster, whatever Databricks I've opened up. Otherwise it might run overnight. Maybe it will cost something. So and I will delete it.
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ
Okay, see you.
ഓക്കെ ബ്രോ. ഓക്കെ, ഗുഡ് നൈറ്റ്.
Okay.
ഓക്കെ, താങ്ക് യു.